Welcome to another explainer. Look, if you've ever felt a cold sweat breaking out as you try to decipher a ridiculously complicated street sign, or, worse, you've returned to your car only to find a frustrating, insanely expensive parking ticket tucked under your windshield wiper, yeah, we've all been there. You are in exactly the right place. Today, we're treating this explainer as your ultimate urban survival guide. We're going to decode all those rigid, sometimes confusing traffic rules surrounding stopping and parking. We'll give you the tools to dodge those heavy fines, and most importantly, we're going to look at the vital safety margins designed to prevent accidents on our roads.
To make this as clear and practical as possible, here's our game plan for today. 1. Stopping versus parking. 2. The 10-meter rules. 3. Specific zones and signs. 4. Decrypting times and dates. And finally 5. A quick test of your knowledge.
Let's jump right in. Section 1. Stopping versus parking. Defining the basics. Okay, so the entire foundation of urban driving rules relies on this precise legal difference between stopping and parking. Stopping basically means your vehicle has come to a halt for a reason other than avoiding danger, being forced to by traffic conditions, or actually parking. Parking, on the flip side, means your vehicle, whether you are physically sitting in the driver's seat or not, is stationary for a reason other than avoiding danger, traffic conditions, loading or unloading goods, or dropping off or picking up passengers. The rule of contrast here is super powerful. Basically, if you aren't doing a very specific active task, the law literally considers you parked.
So you might be wondering, when is your stationary car legally not parked? Well, if you suddenly halt to avoid a collision, you aren't parking. If you're stuck in total gridlock traffic, you aren't parking. And crucially, if you are actively loading or unloading heavy goods or dropping off or picking up a passenger, you're legally just stopped. But keep in mind, this has to be an active process. Sitting and waiting for your friend to finally come out of their apartment for 10 minutes? No way. That crosses the line right into parking territory.
Moving on to Section 2, the 10-meter rules, spatial awareness.
This concept brilliantly illustrates one of the absolutely most critical safety rules on the road. Parking right before a pedestrian crossing creates a highly dangerous, invisible red zone blind spot. I mean, if a pedestrian steps out from behind your car, an approaching driver has practically zero margin to react. However, parking immediately after the crossing, that's generally allowed. Why? Because the approaching driver's view of the crossing itself remains completely clear, so they maintain a much greater safety margin to actually detect anyone walking.
But pedestrian crossings aren't the only spatial areas with strict rules, right? To prevent traffic hazards, stopping and parking are universally prohibited in several other critical zones. You cannot stop within 10 meters of a junction. You absolutely cannot stop on a solid yellow line, inside an underpass or a tunnel, or anywhere on a roundabout. Also, if there is a solid center line on your side of the road, you've got to leave at least 3 meters of space between your car and that line so traffic can actually pass you. And finally, motorways and clearways, strict no stopping zones. Every single one of these rules exists for one reason: to maintain visibility and flow.
And hey, it's not just fixed infrastructure you need to worry about, it's the spatial needs of other vehicles, specifically buses. If you approach an unmarked bus stop, just remember the numbers 20 and 5. You cannot park 20 meters before the bus stop or 5 meters after it. You might ask, why the asymmetrical numbers? Well, it's simply because a giant bus requires significantly more physical room to angle into the stop than it needs to pull back out into traffic. Makes total sense, right?
All right, Section 3, specific zones and signs, where to never park.
While stopping to quickly drop someone off might be totally fine in some places, parking is completely banned in several very specific situations. For example, you cannot park on a broken yellow line. You can't park within a massive 30 meters of a railway crossing. You are strictly forbidden from parking facing the direction of oncoming traffic, meaning the wrong side of the road. Parking on priority roads, totally a no-go unless signed otherwise. You can never block someone's exit, and you definitely can't double park alongside another car. Though, fun fact, you are allowed to double park next to a bicycle or a moped.
Now, what if you actually find a legal spot, but it requires an analog tool to track your time? Enter the parking disc. A parking disc is a brilliant old-school alternative to a physical car park ticket. When you see an additional panel on a sign indicating a parking disc is required, you must use it to state your arrival time. And the golden rule here? You always set your arrival time to the nearest subsequent half hour.
To make absolutely sure you never make a costly mistake with this, let's map out exactly how this rounding works. If your actual arrival time, like the exact moment you pull into the spot and commence parking, is 13:02, You do not set your disk to 13 o'clock. You set it to the nearest subsequent half hour, which is 13:30. Pull in at 14:40. You set your disk to 15 o'clock. Remember, it's all about when you begin parking, not when you intend to come back to your car.
Let's keep rolling. Section 4. Decrypting times and dates. Breaking the matrix.
Okay, when you look at an additional panel indicating times, the numbers can feel highly coded, almost like a matrix. But here's the trick. The top row of numbers, without any brackets or colors, applies to normal weekdays, Monday through Friday. The numbers in parentheses usually apply to Saturdays, but strictly speaking, they apply to the weekday right before a Sunday or public holiday. And finally, the red numbers apply strictly to Sundays or public holidays. Once you understand this layout, you can instantly read pretty much any complex parking sign.
But wait, there is a major exception to this rule. Take a look at signs that explicitly say Mondag or Monday from 8 to 12. If a specific day of the week is written out in text on the sign, the regulation applies to that specific day, absolutely regardless of whether that day happens to be a public holiday. So even if Monday happens to be Christmas Day, the Monday rule remains firmly in effect.
Then we have date parking. It's a shifting system that exists purely to facilitate heavy city maintenance. Think massive snowplows sweeping through the streets. The rule is super simple once you know it. On even-numbered dates, it is prohibited to park on the side of the road with even house numbers. Conversely, on odd-numbered dates, it is prohibited to park on the side of the road with odd house numbers. This stance ensures that one side of the street is always completely clear for maintenance vehicles.
All right, Section 5. Test your knowledge. Let's put this all into practice.
I am going to pose a practical test question directly to you, just to shift us from passive listeners to active problem solvers. Ready? Imagine you pull into a parking spot. The time on your dashboard clock reads exactly 16:54. It is a Tuesday. What exact time must you set on your parking disk?
Imagine you're staring out your windshield at a pole with a blue P sign. Beneath it, there's a panel indicating a 2-hour limit with a parking disk symbol, along with some time brackets. And beneath that is a totally complex yellow and red sign dictating date zones and specific Thursday rules. It looks completely overwhelming, right? But cut through all that noise and focus on the core question. You arrived at 16:54. How do you set that analog disk?
Drumroll, please. The correct answer is 1700. That complex signage down below doesn't change the fundamental physical rule of the parking disk. As the road traffic ordinance clearly states, you must round to the nearest subsequent half hour. If you commence parking at 16:54, the next half-hour mark is 1700. Actually, if you mistakenly put 16:30, you're just robbing yourself of time. And if you guess randomly, you might be walking away with a fine.
So what should we really take away from this explainer? Look, understanding these rules isn't just about passing a test or dealing with frustrating bureaucracy. It's about recognizing that safety margins, like that 10-meter red zone before a crossing, literally save lives by giving drivers the crucial time they need to react. And on the practical side, decoding the bureaucratic matrix of times, dates, and disks simply saves your hard-earned cash. By understanding the why behind the road rules, you make the streets way safer for everyone. So I'll leave you with this question. With all this knowledge in your back pocket, are you ready to confidently navigate the urban jungle? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and drive safe out there.